Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast app or watching on YouTube, welcome to the Lion's Roar podcast, from the publishers of Lion's Roar magazine and Buddha Dharma, the Practitioner's Guide. I'm Sandra Hannibone. If you enjoy this episode, subscribe so you don't miss future interviews. In an intimate conversation encompassing the grief of intergenerational trauma, the power of recognizing our shared humanity, and the vulnerability in ugly crying, Associate Editor Mihiri Tillakaratne speaks with East Bay Meditation Center teacher Arisika Razak about loving kindness. They discuss the difference between loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, alongside practical ways to embody loving kindness in our everyday lives, and how cultivating loving kindness can help us manage our increasingly polarized times. Finally, Razak leads us in a loving kindness meditation practice towards ourselves, those who have supported our journeys, and even the difficult people in our lives. This episode is sponsored by St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Learn more about the St. John's Master of Arts in Eastern Classics at sjc.edu/lion.
Hi, I'm Associate Editor Mihiri Tillakaratne here with Arisika Razak, and today we are going to talk about metta, or loving kindness. I guess my first question is, especially for our viewers who might not be or might be exploring Buddhism, what is metta?
Metta is a Pali term that has been variously translated as friendliness, benevolence, goodwill. The most frequently used term, as I've seen it in Dharma circles, is loving kindness. And that's to kind of distinguish it from the love that is selfish. Metta is in its most clear and basic form, the love that is freely given to all beings, all sentient life on the planet, whether they're beings that you know, whether they're beings that you don't know, whether they're even beings that you are in disagreement with. And so loving kindness or friendliness are some of the terms that are used to translate it. And it's one of what in Buddhist circles are called the four divine abodes.
Yeah, the four divine abodes, or the four sublime states, they're called various things. So I always get confused about this too, right? Even having studied Buddhism for so long, right? We have metta, we have karuna, which is sometimes translated as compassion. We have mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekkha, equanimity. So I sometimes get confused about what is the difference between loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy. Like, what distinguishes metta from those other two good qualities?
So I want to say, first of all, that at least loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy really are connected. So your confusion, my initial confusion, is very normal. One of the things I want to say is that loving kindness is this wish that emanates from our deepest, truest being, in which we honor with respect, we honor which the hope of sharing, of cherishing all life, all beings. Compassion has sometimes been called the quivering of the heart in response to another being's suffering, so that we witness suffering. And as the Buddha said, the first noble truth is the existence of suffering on this earthly plane of existence. So we witness that. We don't turn away from it. We are able to witness it. And in us arises the desire to help someone out of their suffering. Now, and I want to say that one of the things people sometimes get confused about is compassion and empathy. And empathy means to identify with someone's suffering. And I have a really good anecdote about that. When I first began as a midwife, this was before beepers. I know some of our listeners cannot imagine a time. I mean, this is way before cell phones. But before beepers, when all we had were landlines or payphones, and I was on call as a midwife, I would sometimes wake up in the night having cramps in my belly. before the call came to tell me that there was a patient in labor. My mind, body, psyche, heart was so in tune that I felt the pain of labor, not to the extent that the pregnant woman did in my own body. That's empathy. That's when we identify. And as you can imagine, there's a little bit of a problem. If you stay in that place of identification, you can't act. What I needed to do was to be able to go to the hospital and stand in my place of calmness, of caring, and extend loving touch, loving witness to that person in pain, to be able to say, just breathe, just one more contraction. It's where we feel, we experience the fact that the patient is suffering, that the person is suffering, and we are moved to alleviate that suffering. And mudita, or sympathetic joy, is simply the joy we feel when someone, even if we don't know them, achieves something that is wonderful. Now, sometimes it's very simple. Many of us just rejoiced when Barack Obama was elected president. You know, certainly the Black community rejoiced. We rejoiced because he was one of us, and some of us never thought that would happen. But even far away, other people. I was in Korea during the fall that he was running, and we were invited to have tea with the abbot of a monastery. And the abbot looked at me and he said, Obama. Now, to me, you know, we didn't have any other conversation that was direct. But to me, he also, that abbot, would have had joy in the election of Obama. So it's sympathetic joy. It can be connected to you, but it can be not connected to you. And so I think those for me are some of the differences. Loving kindness, and I think that principle that we care about others is so basic, and it's in so many religions, you know.
So how do we cultivate metta? Like, how do we, in our everyday lives, what are some practical ways that we can embody metta?
I think,
because it kind of seems like it's hard.
I want to say that metta is practiced for the self, for the benefactor, for the neutral person, and for what is termed the difficult person. And I never advocate that people practice metta beginning with the difficult person. That's an advanced practice. But if we begin by practicing, some people, I begin by practicing metta for the self, but some people believe that in American culture, we have all been raised with such a voice of an internal critic, a judge, that it's really hard to practice metta for the self. So they advocate that we practice metta for our benefactors, those that we know care about us. So you can begin by affirming for someone that you have been in contact with, that has supported you, and just practice affirmations of goodwill. We can practice metta toward our child, toward our animal companion. I certainly know that, after realizing that, when my son was traveling in Europe and I was worried about him, I had learned early on that the same energy with which we worry or get anxious about someone that we care about can be turned into affirmations of their goodwill. So I practiced metta for my son, to help release some of that anxiety and worry. As a ritual thing for the new year, my husband and I, sometimes at midnight, but sometimes the next day, do a practice of metta, for ourselves and for every room in the house, so that we ask that blessings, that those who come through our doors mean no harm. Metta is both a practice of protection, and it's a practice that deepens the cultivation of the heart, the mind-heart states that move us closer to being enlightened and loving beings. Now, I don't know anybody who's enlightened, but certainly we all know that giving more love in the world, more caring, and not even the love where we get something back directly, is a good thing. Certainly as a midwife, I can say that even the people that I find most standing in disagreement with me, and certainly in this political climate, many of us feel that there are people who are our enemies. They want us to disappear. They want our histories to disappear. But I like to remember that when they came out of their mother's or their birth giver's body, they were simply an infant in need of love and tenderness and care. And that Buddhism speaks about causes and conditions. And if we understand that even the most constricted, mean person was once a child who was in need, then we have compassion for them and we can affirm their well-being. We don't have to demonize our enemies. We can look at their actions and say, no, this has to stop. But we don't have to make them demons from another plane. We don't have to make them bad people that we hate. I like to think that inside of some of the people who are doing very bad things in the world, very harmful things in the world, is a small, scared child who never got their parents' approval and needs to be a big person on the world stage. And if that harms the earth, they don't care. I think that's sometimes about people engaged in war. That if we could understand that those we are arrayed against want also the best for themselves and their group, we could begin to find a way to peace.
So do you think cultivating metta is like that first step towards understanding? Or that first step towards bringing people together, even if they might be considered enemies? I don't know. I feel like this is a very big question, but this is something that, I've been thinking about just watching the news, opening up my news app every day on my phone in the morning. I think how can we, and being Buddhist, how is this possible to...
I think that in the question you're asking, metta and compassion go very closely together. And I'm thinking right now, I don't know what is happening now with this process, but before the current struggle, war, whatever we want to call it, in Gaza erupted, there were a group of Palestinian and Israeli people who had relatives, children, parents, other relatives, had been killed by the opposing side. And they came together and went to schools and other gathering places in Israel to tell their story. I would say that both of those groups encountered that quivering of the heart. Having lost children, they could appreciate the pain of someone who had lost a child. And the unfortunate thing about war is there's no war that I have heard of in which innocents were not killed. It is the price of war. And the wounds of war, the scars, remain for generations. And the fear that we will be wiped out again, for example. I think about climate change and the fact that if your water sources dry up, you're going to want to march you and your livestock into the next village and demand a share of their water, because you're not going to stand by idly and let your children, your spouse, your relatives die. But there has to be that quivering of the heart and the recognition that we're human beings. And metta and loving kindness, I think what metta does is it is the foundation on which we can stand to feel that quivering of the heart. For me, if we do metta for ourselves, we recognize our wounded child. We recognize our suffering. We affirm the right to end it. We reach out next to the benefactor and the neutral person. And as we come to understand that every soul, every sentient being deserves to be cherished, to be honored, to be seen for their gifts and talents, then we understand the importance of reaching out toward one another. And you know, if I knew a way to end the current wars and struggles, if anybody knew for sure, I think we would not be at the place we are. But I would say that we cultivate the open heart. And certainly from the civil rights movement, we know that there were people who were white supremacists. We know even now there are people who are so-called skinheads, Aryan white supremacists, who recognized the error of their ways. And that was not because somebody came and said, you are a horrible person. You are No, they changed because at some level they felt that quivering of the heart. At some level, they were approached by someone who wished them well. And so I think these are really important qualities.
I'm like processing right now as you were speaking, like something you just explained, something that happened to me or I experienced 6 months ago. So I went to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka, for which is where my family is from, with my parents are from, experienced a civil war, ethnic conflict, the echoes and scars of which continue to this day, even though it's been technically over for 15 years. So I wanted to go to Jaffna, which is, I'd never been before. Actually, my parents had never been before either, because of, again, the war. That was a place that was not accessible to them during wartime. And so I hired a tour guide who spoke Tamil, because I don't speak Tamil, I only speak Sinhala. And we went to the Jaffna Library, which burned down, which was burned down, I should say, in 1981. And it's been rebuilt and it's beautiful, but they had some pictures in the lobby of the day after it was burned down. And I was so overcome. I started ugly crying in the middle of the library, like weeping. And I very much do not cry in public at all. So this was just I was overcome. And then there were these people, library patrons, who are just trying to, go about their days and check out books and read things. And I couldn't explain myself in English because they didn't speak English. And I couldn't explain myself in Tamil because they couldn't speak Tamil. So one man stopped my tour guide and was like, what's going on with this like crying fat lady in the middle of the library? I'm sure he didn't phrase it that way, but that's kind of what I felt. I was like, oh no, I'm just making a fool of myself. And I guess the guide explained, but that man came over, and we had this sort of like moment where he put his hand on my shoulder, and then we did this to each other. And we did not have the same language, but we were able to connect over the shared sense of grief and that shared sense of humanity. And now, thank you so much for giving me that quivering of the heart, because now I realize that's what it was. We had that, our hearts were quivering in the same resonance.
Right.
So thank you so much for that.
And I want to say that person in that moment saw your humanity. He did not see you as a fat person. He did not see you ugly crying. He simply saw what is our humanity, our vulnerability, and our tears. If Spirit didn't want us to be able to cry, we wouldn't have tear ducts. Let's be clear. And we are supposed to be able to respond. And and if we could truly witness each other's grief, I think something would change. And so that, peacekeeping, again, is really hard. But for me, it's one of the most important things. And it starts in our families, because for many of us, I might say most, but I'm not going to presume. There may be some people who had totally happy childhood with no trauma. But for many of us, our initial wounds are in our family of origin. And so if we can understand the causes and conditions, when I realized, for example, that my mother was the third generation born out of slavery, I understood a lot more of some of the things that she did, that were just not right, because that's what had been passed on from enslaved people, that intergenerational trauma. And the ways that we were disciplined is how we disciplined our children. And and I can, and she's been dead several decades, but I still say metta for her spirit. I didn't realize I was in a disagreement with it, but it turns out I've recently found out that someone was angry at me until the point that they died, to the point that the committee organizing their memorial didn't want me to speak. And I can honor that. And when I had heard of this person's death, my first response was that quivering of the heart. We'd had some disagreements. I had not thought they were as major, evidently, as she did. But my first response was, oh, and to affirm her well-being. In some Buddhist beliefs, she has gone to another womb for rebirth. And on that other side, she sees clearly, as I will. And so for me, we affirm, we start with ourselves, because if we are contracted and crippled and judge badly of ourselves, how can we send love to someone else? So for me, I start there, and then go to the beneficiary, someone who has helped us, whether it was by word, action, deed, inspiration. I am grateful to Maya Angelou. I'm grateful to people that I never personally met. Some people I witnessed. But you can say, for me, one of the values of metta, we say it in the here and now. And we say it for the living and the dead. And we say it for all sentient beings, for those trees in the inner city that are struggling to rise up in the middle of all those car exhaust fumes. We say it for the little plant coming through the concrete. We say it for the Amazon rainforest and the polar bears and the emperor penguins. All of that. Yeah. It's an important for me. It's an important affirmation for me. And it is that recognition that we are independent and we are one. And even sometimes our opponents help us clarify our ideals, help us distinguish, oh, they mean that and I mean this. This is of primary importance to them. But that is and in that understanding, perhaps we can make alliances. I read somewhere that Van Jones, who was identified as liberal and progressive African American, actually reached out to somebody who had a history of working with the Klan, because they could come together, because both of them cared about education in a particular school. Bernice Reagan, the song leader of A Sweet Honey in the Rock, said once, you don't have to love your allies. You have to work with them. Martin Luther King said we had to love our enemies. He went there. And metta, there's some quote that I don't even want to remember because it's so difficult. You will bomb our churches, kill our children, set dogs on, and we will still love you. Martin Luther King embodied the principle of metta. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm working on it in the small ways that I can get annoyed by, you know, how my spouse washes dishes, you know, or someone who I've been in a struggle with academically, or, you know, someone who's just by personality, we just clash. You know, if spirit wanted everybody in the world to be just like me, that would be how the universe is. It is not. So I accept that and work with it.
Thank you. That's lovely.
St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico is for undergraduate and graduate students who seek a lifelong commitment to thoughtful, collaborative inquiry into fundamental human questions. Graduate students pursuing the Master of Arts in Eastern Classics examine the core literary, philosophical, and theological works of India, China, and Japan. In small, discussion-based classes, students delve into the richness of Asian traditions and study one of two languages, Classical Chinese or Sanskrit. The 3-semester Eastern Classics program offers the flexibility of both online and on-campus options. Learn more about the St. John's Master of Arts in Eastern Classics at sjc.edu/lion.
Would you mind leading us in a short 3 to 5 minute metta practice so we can
Sure.
all experience and embody, and perhaps, you know, use this in our regular daily, weekly, monthly practice?
I would love to do that. And I would say one of the things I think metta fosters is a sense of gratitude. And whatever has happened in the night, whatever our body is feeling in the moment, this is the body that takes us through the day. The sun rises, the fog rises, the rain falls. We need to be grateful for all of it. Even if we are struggling with climate change, to be grateful for whatever is given to us. So I invite you, just find a comfortable place to sit. I know you're in a comfortable place, Mihiri, but some of our listeners may need to lie down, recline in a rocker. But find a space that is as comfortable for your body as is possible in this moment. I invite you to gently close your eyes or rest the gaze, maybe to place a hand over the belly and the heart. I invite you to take a deep breath in and to let it out. And perhaps to feel the rise and fall of breath. The rise and fall of breath in the chest, and the rise and fall of breath in the belly. And no shame about the belly. A miracle takes place there. Food is transformed into energy. Feel your feet on the floor, your sits bones on the mat or the cushion. Take a breath in, let it out, and let's make a humming sound. We're feeling the vibration in our throat, in our bones, in our belly. And I want to imagine that you are standing or sitting or lying in front of a mirror, and you see yourself as if you were looking at your best beloved, as if you were looking at a beloved child, as if you were this divine spirit of healing, seeing this small earth body with all its perfections and imperfections, perfect, perfectly imperfect in this moment. And imagine that you are repeating after me, or speak this. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may I find moments of ease, joy, well-being, and support in the body that I have. May I be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may I find moments of ease and joy, well-being and support in the body that I have. May I care for myself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may I be cared for with ease and joy. May I care for myself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may I be cared for with ease and joy. May I be happy, truly, truly happy. Just take a breath and notice how you feel. Just notice, no judgment. I'm going to ask you now to repeat this for the benefactor. This is someone who has supported you in your journey, who has offered you resource, praised your actions, guided or inspired you. They can be living or dead. So think of a person and have an image of them in your heart's eye, your mind's eye, your gut's eye. And I'm going to say you, but please insert the name of this person in the words that I am saying. May you be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May you, name a person, be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May you be strong and healthy in mind and body. May you be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may you still find moments of support and well-being in the body that you have. May you be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may you still find moments of joy and be supported in the body that you have. May you care for yourself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may those who care for you do so with ease and joy. May you care for yourself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may those who care for you do so with ease and joy. And may you be happy, truly, truly happy. May you be happy, truly, truly happy. And just take a breath in. How did it feel to connect with loving kindness towards this person who cares for you? Towards this person who has been a benefactor, inspired you, loved and cherished you. Just feel for a moment whatever is arising in your heart. And even though this is an advanced practice, I'm going to ask you to pick someone who is a difficult person. Now, this is not the person who caused the core wound of your childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, or middle-aged person. This is not someone who who by malice caused you to lose a job. This is someone that you've had a minor argument with. Maybe it's someone who most of the time you love and cherish, but who got on your last nerve this week. It may be that your cherished animal companion, who you thought was trained out of this, barked or lunged at a passerby or a child. It may be someone who cut you off on the freeway if you were driving, or whose voice just bothers you. You don't even know why, but every time you hear that particular resonance, high-pitched, low-pitched voice, you get annoyed, and you know it's not them. It's really something in your past. So pick someone who is difficult, but who is difficult for a minor reason. Okay? Let them come to mind. Take a breath. Maybe place for a moment your hand on the belly or the heart. And let yourself feel, as is in so many great books and teachings, the sun shines on all, regardless. Mu'inuddin Chishti, Khwaja Mu'inuddin Chishti, a great Sufi saint, said a friend of God must have affection like the sun. When the sun rises, it is beneficial to all, irrespective of whether they are Muslim, Christian, or Hindu. And I would certainly add Jew to that. So let us imagine that we are the sun of loving kindness. And to this person who has touched us in a way that did not evoke compassion or loving kindness, let's extend to them. May you be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. See their humanity. May you be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May you be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may you still find joy and be supported in the body you have. May you be strong and healthy in mind and body. And if that's not possible, may you still find moments of ease, well-being, and be supported in the body you have. May you care for yourself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may you be cared for with ease and joy. May you care for yourself with ease and joy. And if that's not possible, may you be cared for with ease and joy. And finally, may you be happy, truly, truly happy. May you be happy, truly, truly happy. And remember, the happiness that we are invoking is the happiness of a full and open heart, the happiness of clear-sightedness that sees beyond. We are inviting all beings, especially this difficult person and the difficult people on the world stage, to truly receive what is needed so they can be happy, truly happy. As Khalil Gibran once said when asked to speak of evil, what is evil but good tortured by its own thirst and its own hunger? And if we hear that, if we understand that, we can see that those taking actions, and genocide is happening all over the world. It is not one place. War is happening all over the world, and innocents are dying. Climate change is happening. And let us, as one of my first spiritual teachers said, I am praying that all political leaders experience in their hearts the desire for peace, happiness, and safety for all. This is the heart of the Metta Sutta, that we invoke it for ourselves, we invoke it for all sentient life, and we invoke it especially for those who have undergone such difficulties that their heart is so narrow that they can only wish to invoke difficulties on the world. Metta asks that they receive safety and protection, that their lives be easeful and joyful, and that they be safe and protected and happy. And that does not mean harming others. May all beings be truly, truly happy. May they see their internal Buddha nature. May they experience the peace that passeth understanding. May they join hands in fellowship with all sentient life on this planet and the world. May they be guided by the wisdom of all our dead who wish us to have a world at peace. We are all descended from indigenous people indigenous to some place and some continent. And they want us to be well, and they want all sentient life to be well. May, in the practice of metta, we come to this understanding. Ashe, Ho Mitakuye, Salam, Shalom, and Lakesh. Amen. Blessed be. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And please add any affirmations of your own that I may have missed. I am only imperfect, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely and transformative and inspiring. I very much appreciate that on a personal level and for our Lions Roar audience as well. So I thank you on behalf of myself, my community, and the Lions Roar community.
And I thank you for sharing your experience of the quivering of the heart. It's very meaningful to me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Mission-driven, nonprofit, and community-supported, Lions Roar offers Buddhist teachings, news, and perspectives so that the understanding and practice of Buddhism flourish in today's world, and its timeless wisdom is accessible. Go to lionsroar.com to subscribe and get unlimited access to online articles, new magazine issues, and several collections, plus perks and exclusives from Lions Roar magazine and Buddha Dharma, the Practitioner's Guide.